Today's newsletter brings forth a flurry of significant developments across various sectors, demanding a comprehensive overview. The Prime Minister's announcement of a substantial increase in defense spending, reaching 2.5% of GDP, dominates the headlines. This considerable financial commitment is entirely offset by a drastic reduction in the aid budget, sparking intense debate and criticism. The Institute of Fiscal Studies, IFS, offers a contrasting perspective, estimating the defense expenditure increase at £5.3 billion, significantly less than the government's claimed £13.4 billion. This discrepancy raises questions regarding the accuracy and transparency of government figures, prompting a detailed analysis by Defense and Security editor Dan Sabag, available for further reading. Labour leader Keir Starmer acknowledges the unavoidable, extremely difficult and painful choices inherent in financing the augmented defense budget, expressing his reluctance, yet acceptance, of the necessary aid cuts. This latest reduction, following a previous cut under the Johnson administration, arrives just 2 days before Starmer's crucial meeting with Donald Trump. The timing is arguably strategic, potentially aiming to appease the president's long-standing concerns about NATO allies' insufficient defense contributions. This move draws stark parallels to the controversial dismantling of USAID under Elon Musk's leadership, a $40 billion budget now facing restructuring. Only 2 weeks prior, Foreign Secretary David Lammy voiced his apprehension in The Guardian, warning that Trump's drastic aid cuts could represent a big strategic mistake, creating an opening for China to expand its global influence. Despite Lammy's initial concerns, he subsequently clarified the Labour government's position, emphasizing their pragmatic approach, stating that they are a government of pragmatists, not ideologues, highlighting a shift in their stance. International affairs dominate the news cycle, with significant updates from Ukraine and Gaza. Donald Trump's provocative statement, suggesting that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's worth amounts to $500 billion to justify the extent of U.S. military aid, further ignites the ongoing debate surrounding aid allocation and geopolitical strategies. In Gaza, Israel seeks to extend the ceasefire agreement following the conflict with Hamas. However, the continuation of peace remains contingent upon progress in critical negotiations this week, with a resumption of hostilities looming as a potential outcome should talks fail to yield results. Domestically, the NHS faces upheaval with Health Secretary Wes Streeting's plan to eliminate thousands of positions within NHS England. This follows the unexpected resignation of Amanda Pritchard as chief executive, prompting concerns among health service personnel regarding a potential power grab. Sir Jim Mackey will temporarily fill the role. The education sector grapples with the widespread use of generative AI by undergraduates. New research indicates that almost all students utilize tools like ChatGPT for assessments, a sharp increase from the previous year. This alarming trend necessitates urgent action from universities to assess and adapt their evaluation methods. The BBC faces scrutiny following an external inquiry into allegations of bullying and misogynistic behavior by former Radio 1 DJ Tim Westwood. The inquiry, prompted by a joint Guardian-BBC News investigation, reveals missed opportunities to address the serious misconduct allegations. The impact of the aid budget cuts remains a topic of intense scrutiny and concern. Internal government assessments from 2023 projected devastating consequences, including thousands of maternal deaths in Africa and an increase in unsafe abortions due to reduced healthcare access. The Guardian's global health correspondent, Kat Lay, highlighted the disproportionate impact on women and girls, particularly concerning sexual and reproductive health rights. The UK, being the second largest donor of official development assistance for these rights, faces amplified responsibility for the consequences of its decision. While the government intends to prioritize remaining funds for Ukraine, Sudan, Gaza, and climate initiatives, the issue of aid budget reallocation to cover asylum system costs remains a critical point of discussion. The proportion allocated to asylum-related expenses rose from 3.2% in 2016 to 28% in 2023, compounding the concerns around overall aid effectiveness. Starmer's defense of the aid cuts, citing limited options due to fiscal constraints and the necessity of increased defense spending, faces criticism. The Guardian's editorial points out the limitations of this argument, deeming it a belief system that passively accepts capitalist constraints and ignores the potential for alternative solutions. The UK's stance on foreign aid aligns with a global trend of reduced contributions. Many countries, including Germany, Sweden, France, the Netherlands, and Finland, have implemented aid cuts, often citing budgetary pressures and rising anti-foreign aid sentiment. The most drastic example is the US under the Trump administration, which effectively dismantled the aid department, leading to severe consequences, such as the closure of almost 80% of emergency food kitchens in Sudan due to a funding freeze, according to the BBC, leading to warnings of widespread starvation and disease. The overall decline in global aid is characterized by a shift toward short-term expediency over long-term strategic planning. Further commentary examines the growing influence of the billionaire class, with Brian Cox discussing the potential for a wealth tax to mitigate the influence of oligarchs. Marina Hyde's commentary on Elon Musk and his views on pronatalism provides a critical perspective on societal priorities. The Guardian's film team previews the Oscars, and the newsletter includes a piece on the intensive process of award season preparation. A quirky feature explores the New York Yankees' recent decision to abolish their long-standing no facial hair rule for players. In football news, updates cover Premier League results, Jenny Hermoso's appeal against Luis Rubiel's sexual assault conviction, and Galatasaray's accusations of racist statements against Jose Mourinho. News outlets offer varied perspectives on the Prime Minister's defense budget increase and aid cuts, from The Guardian's focus on the impact on overseas aid to the Daily Mail's emphasis on shifting priorities towards hard power. Other outlets provide further detailed reports on the US-Ukraine mineral deal, European responses to the crisis, and the impact of domestic violence on children. Finally, an investigative piece details a labor peer's involvement in an undercover operation revealing allegations of cash for access during discussions about a substantial commercial deal. On a lighter note, the newsletter concludes with a heartwarming story of a lottery winner, Abbas Shafi'i, claiming a life-changing Powerball jackpot. Regular features include crosswords and a link to the Upside newsletter.